So it's the first Big Finish review of 2017, even though that calendar is clearly a 2016 one. I've just not bought one. I don't want to take it down because I don't want the annoying gap, because I know that'll be annoying for me and probably you as well. So yeah, ignore the fact that it says December. It's not December, honest, it's January. But yeah, still, that's just going to need to go there until I can find something to replace it. Today I'm kicking off the Big Finish reviews of 2017, even though it isn't even mid-January yet, because hey, there's a lot to go through this year, and I'm going to be starting off with the Beast of Kravenos, whatever you'd like to call it. It's the first episode of the current Series 6 of 4th Doctor Adventures, something of which I didn't really review as much last year. I think I reviewed 1 or 2 of them, but I did listen to a few of the other ones. I just didn't get around to filming the reviews of them because it was pretty busy at some points in the year. But yeah, this year I might make a little bit of an effort to actually review some of the 4th Doctor ones from this year, since I didn't go into them as much last year. Of course, if you know me, you know exactly why I'm reviewing this release, and it is, of course, with it being episode 1, the return of Jago Litefoot, because we've decided to put Jago Litefoot back into the 4th Doctor Adventures for this episode only, set in Victorian London, so that is exactly why I'm reviewing this right here. Not even lying about that, because, you know, Jago and Litefoot are brilliant, as you all know, and I just really wanted another episode with them in. As always, in the description below, I will leave the link to go and buy this release from the Big Finish website. It's out now, and it is only £10.99 because it is a part of the 4th Doctor Adventures. It's a slightly different format of only 1 hour stories. So yeah, slightly cheaper and even better. And if you want to get into Jago and Litefoot, this is the perfect way to do it. We're going into a few of the details first on the Big Finish website. We have a few things including cast information to go through. But yeah, of course, the casting for this main story. We have Tom Baker, of course, playing the 4th Doctor. We have Layla Ward playing Romana 2. We've previously had a story with Romana 1, so a bit of an alteration this time. Then what's really nice to see, we have John Leeson playing K9. Yay, we have Christopher Benjamin playing Henry Gordon Jago, and then we have Trevor Baxter playing Professor George Lightfoot, and we have Conrad Asquith playing Inspector Quick, and Ed Stoppard playing Sir Nicholas Asquin, and that is virtually it for this episode. All the other sounds and things are just played by other general people in the cast. But yeah, generally it's quite a small cast story, something that is a reoccurring theme for the 4th Doctor line. It is of course written by Justin Richards, a very regular Big Finish writer, and is directed by Nicholas Briggs, who's of course the almighty god of Big Finish, a brilliant person, a brilliant director, and of course generally responsible for this main thing happening, because without him Big Finish wouldn't exist, and for that I'm eternally grateful. Talking about the characters in detail, the 4th Doctor for this one, I've not really listened to much of the 4th Doctor, considering he's a very iconic Doctor. I think that I've definitely not really done much of his work in Big Finish, and I'm sort of wanting to do a little bit more of that in the future probably. But yeah, for this one, he's taking on more of the season 18, I do believe, style of Tom Baker from the very end of his run, sort of before E-Space, I think, and the Leisure Hive is where this episode is in fact put according to the behind the scenes. It's a little bit of an odd story production wise, because it is in fact sort of between when John Nathan Turner takes over, and they did have a little bit of an odd thing of what they should do for this story. Should they include the new Peter Howell version of the theme tune, but they also blended in a bit of sort of the older music and things. So yeah, it is a little bit of an interesting thing on the behind the scenes of where they wanted to position this story. But yeah, Tom Baker, he was a little bit more of his older self as the 4th Doctor, sort of the later version of him. However, he had some really funny lines in there. I thought that he was excellent, as from the episodes that I've seen him in previously. He has some great lines, great moments, really good interactions with Henry and George. I think that they get along a lot together, and I think it's a nice little family unit having Romana in there as well. Generally though, I still think that they sort of suit the 6th Doctor a little bit more. I think they sort of have a little bit more of a stronger family unit, even though that they're nice together in this. I still think that there's something a little bit more welcoming with the 6th Doctor stuff that they've been in. But yeah, Romana 2, played by Layla Ward, who we've never seen her in a Jago and Litefoot story before. This is the first ever time that they're sort of together. Henry's a little bit confused as to why the Doctor has 2 friends called Romana, of course, because they previously met Romana 1 in the Justice of Jalxar. I do believe that that's from series 2 or 3. I can't really remember the 4th Doctor run, but yeah, I think that we have an interesting line there. They tend to brush over it though. There isn't really too many developments between how she has the same name or anything like that, and the way that she's in fact the same person. Same with K9 actually. I sort of expected a little bit of a reaction to K9, expecting sort of what he is and things like that, but yeah, there wasn't really much about that. It was sort of just accepting that it's the Doctor's alien dog thing, but yeah, they sort of like the idea of that, I think. Christopher Benjamin was excellent as per usual. The main premise of the story is in fact based around the theatre itself and an act that is on in the theatre, sort of creating this energy. So yeah, it is a very Jago based story. I think we have a little bit more Jago in this than Litefoot, because Litefoot has a few things to do, of course involving dead bodies, like the person that he is always in his morgue. But yeah, I think that moving on to Litefoot, in fact, I think that he is, once again in this story, he has a few nice lines in there, and it's generally nice to see them all together working nicely. And I think that generally he sort of had more of a relationship with Inspector Quick for this story, which is another first for this one. We've never had the Fourth Doctor meet Inspector Quick, who's now the Inspector, but yeah, not a sort of PC Quick or anything like that. But Leeson as K9 as well, I really enjoyed him in this story. He had a little bit more of a role to play. I think there's a difference between K9. You can either have a writer that will properly write him into the plot where he can go and do things, he's an active part of the story, or you can have a writer that has him at the very opening scene of the story and then he's told to stay in the TARDIS for the majority of the episode. And that's definitely something in this one where you have K9 very much active. He has a very big role to play. He in fact is sort of an exhibit in the theatre. He's one of the things that is in fact performing on stage, which was pretty funny to actually sort of listen to. They introduced some of the acts and things, pretty much taking over Henry's job, and I think they had a few funny things. He had a bit of a Q&A very early on where some of the audience was asking him different questions, like what does he eat, and he was saying things like, oh, I'm sort of nuts and bolts and things like that. He had a very sort of comedic style to this story. I think that he had a really nice part to play, I think, and something of which that I wouldn't really say about K9 in the past stories, because I think that he is very much a computer in the classic series. I think that he's not really as much of a character, and I think that the new series definitely gave him a little bit more of character so you can sort of relate to him. But the classic series, there is a few stories where he is literally a walking computer, but it's nice to see with this one they're definitely sort of playing with his funny elements and things, and sort of the relationship that he has with the Fourth Doctor as well, which is really nice to see sort of blossoming. So yeah, it was nice to see a few little funny moments in there as well. So the main plot for this story is that something's going on creating this style of energy, and K9 needs to try and track down what is in fact doing it. We have a few people in the story that we have a bit of a whodunit about it, which I do quite like. We have the Doctor returning to Baker Street, which was his former residence, I do believe, in Series 7 of Jago and Litefoot. So we have a few references in there to the actual Jago and Litefoot series that no doubt a lot of Jago and Litefoot fans will in fact really enjoy. But yeah, we have a few little things in there, and sort of the Doctor needing to track down what happens, and we have a few Sherlock aspects in there as well, very much the way that we have Jago and Litefoot having their own investigations, and Litefoot especially needing to go very early on in the story to the morgue to go and identify this dead body and see what happened to it. And it turns out that of course the two mysteries by the very end interlock together, which I think by now with Jago and Litefoot is something that you definitely become to expect with plots like this. But yeah, we have definitely a very Sherlock style of whodunit in here, where we have a few multiple different characters and a few different acts in the theatre, where I need to sort of figure out what one's the alien, what one's using this energy, and what one is the massive hair creature which is apparently being witnessed around London and things, where they need to find out what's being stolen. As I say, this episode is only 1 hour long, much like the majority of the Fourth Doctor adventures, meaning it is a little bit more quick dash in parts, especially part 1. However, there is a few little points where I think that we have sort of a little bit of a rest, where we have the Doctor sort of going off, Romana going with Litefoot to go and see the body in the morgue and things, and we have sort of, it's very unusual because you sort of feel that 1 hour it's going to go very quickly. However, they fit a lot into that 1 hour. It doesn't feel rushed whatsoever. The climax at the very end feels very established, and then even beyond the climax at the end of the story, we get about 5 minutes worth of relaxation at the end, literally, where we have them all coming together as a little bit of a family to sort of talk about the events of the story, and most importantly just socialise, which is something that I think that it sort of adopted a few Jago and Litefoot themes in there especially, and brought it into Doctor Who, and I do really like that. Very early on in part 2, you in fact find out that the Doctor knows exactly who the person is and who's taking these artefacts, because the Doctor in fact noticed that they had artefacts in their collection and things. And I think that throughout the story you don't in fact know yourself who it is, but the Doctor does know, so he sort of plans it out in his head and goes to see different people. It's very much sort of a questioning whodunit style of thing, but by the very end of course it is all wrapped up. The Doctor knew exactly who it was and knows how to solve it and things. At the same time, Jago's sort of bumbling around London wanting to try and find out why once again for like the 6th billionth time he's turned into a massive hair creature, which I think is an ongoing gag between Doctor Who and Jago and Litefoot, because if anybody's going to be turned into a massive growling hair creature, it is always Jago, because he can literally do it so well. It happened in Series 10, I think it happened a little bit in Series 11. If anything bad is going to happen to anybody, it is always Jago that gets it, and never normally Litefoot, which is quite amusing, because he just, I think what it is he just plays it so well, and he can growl very well also. When looking back on this one after listening to it, you do in fact sort of realise that there isn't really potentially a villain for the story, or a monster, because the monster in the story is in fact mistaken using this teleport device, because it's of course programmed to a different alien and not a humanoid. It's using it and sort of slowly evolving into this alien creature and turns into it every so often, and a similar thing happened to Jago very early on in the story because he in fact got the teleport used against him. So I think that very much it is a little bit of a misunderstanding story, and at the very end we don't have any big explosions of the monster being sort of shot or anything like that, or really even dealt with. We sort of have them just coming to an understanding of what needs to happen and the way that the Doctor can sort of help by using this sort of medicine. And it is definitely a very refreshing plot from having sort of a villain in there being all evil and things like that, and it's something sort of once again that fits the Jago Litefoot theme very well. Romana is also quite enjoyable for this story. I think that her relationship between Litefoot is a little bit stronger than Jago, and I think that we have some nice moments with her in there. I did like her in the story. I thought that she was quite enjoyable. She's not exactly a companion, I don't think. She's more of literally another version of the Doctor, a female version of the Doctor to an extent, because she has sort of little things to do in there. She has little things to do for herself, little sort of activities and things, you know, and certain little ideas that she wants to take on herself. She's very much a strong character, sort of a scientist style of character, something that very much that Litefoot especially can in fact sort of get to grips with and sort of develop their relationship over, because they have a similar interest. And I think that generally she sort of unusually fits the Victorian theme sort of unintentionally. But what I like about this one is it's not exactly Doctor Who to its full potential. I think that in a way Jago Litefoot, because it's now 12, nearly 13 series in, it's developed its own style, which I've said throughout the very beginning of my Jago Litefoot reviews. It's not exactly Doctor Who. It's as its own way of doing things, its own way of resolving plots, its own way of using weapons and things like that, and it definitely gets to grips with that of Victorian London, and I think that they do that very well in this story, where we have a balance between Doctor Who and Jago Litefoot, as I was saying in the behind the scenes, where we have the Doctor coming into Jago Litefoot, such as in series 11 with the 6th Doctor. He did to make it so they had the Doctor physically coming into Jago Litefoot's series and not Jago Litefoot going into the Doctor's, and I think that with this one we have a little bit of a balance, because I think that no matter what way you shove Jago Litefoot, they will always have some sort of presence, and I think with this story especially, it does definitely bring on some of the presence, some of sort of the formats of the Jago Litefoot series into Doctor Who. As I say, we have a few more resolutions in there, a few more things going on, and I think that generally the format is very interesting, and something of which if you're a Jago Litefoot fan especially, you'll probably want this release. But also if you're a Jago Litefoot sort of wanting to be fan, sort of a wannabe of, I guess, the Jago Litefoot era of Doctor Who, then I definitely recommend this one also, because as I say, it's £10.99. It's a lot less cheaper than the actual series, so I recommend this one if you want to get into Jago Litefoot, because it definitely gives you a very good taste of what Jago Litefoot are actually like. So yeah, overall for this release, it was thoroughly enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the rest of the 4th Doctor line as well, if I decide to go on and review them. Hopefully I will at some point. I may sort of fade in and out of certain ones and take a look at different ones that really catch my attention. But yeah, I think that generally for this one, it's definitely one of those beginner's stories. I think the Big Finish have realised that Jago Litefoot is getting a little bit more on the map between different people now, and they sort of want to create an episode where you can really get into Jago Litefoot, and this is definitely that. If you're a Big Finish fan who loves Jago Litefoot, of course you will no doubt be buying this episode anyway, but also if you're somebody who's genuinely interested, which I know there's a lot of people who are genuinely interested in Jago Litefoot, however are a little bit daunted about all of the backlog, this episode is perfect for you because it has zero backlog whatsoever. It's a Doctor Who story, and it really gets you into the format of Jago Litefoot as well as the characters as well. You get introduced to the majority of the cast, including Inspector Quick as well. The only person who's absent for this story is in fact Ellie, who sort of didn't really have much of a part to play anyway, even if she was in it. But yeah, I think that we've had a lot of Ellie in series 12 of Jago Litefoot anyway, so I think that having her absence for this release can of course be forgiven. But yeah, I think that generally overall for this one, it was a thoroughly enjoyable one. I really enjoyed the 1 hour format. I think it's great to just sit down to and listen to and enjoy for that 1 hour. Nothing too bloated, nothing too complicated, just a really nice simple plot with a simple story behind it, and a simply enjoyable release. So yeah, that's that. A really good start to the Jago Litefoot run for this year, and now I think there's only 3 months left until series 13, I think. I might check the website actually. April, January, February, March. Yes! I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, please do give it a big like. Please subscribe if you're not already. If any questions, please do leave them below and be sure to answer them at some point in the near future. Thanks again for watching. I shall see you all next time. So thanks for watching and bye for now.